Hey there guys, here's video 3 for the Explorer restoration project, which isn't finished yet, and I wanted to give you an update on what I've done over the last couple of days because a lot has happened and I changed my mind on certain things twice, so I'll take you through that journey. And what I did was I started with the neck of the guitar, which as you can see was in an absolutely horrible state, and I was soldering away, heating up the frets, and I used the nippers, which were a cheap pair of nippers from Amazon, and I wasn't getting any luck. So what I decided to do then and there was call a luthier. I found a local luthier that I had spoken to about a different guitar and a different repair project earlier in the year, and I phoned him, took him through my problems, and he was like, "Okay, I'll refret it." So I went ahead and attached the machine heads and gave the back of the guitar neck a clean in order to get it ready for taking it to him next week. And that was what we had agreed. Got all the machine heads on. It's my first time using locking machine heads, so I'll be interested to see how they work versus what I'm used to. I went to go and replace the back plate because the luthier wanted the guitar body and neck, not just the neck. And it looks like this guitar does not have a standard sized back plate versus the versus the old one. So that has meant that I've had to put the old back plate in a bath of white wine vinegar, and the missus then came in and said, actually, we should add some bicarb of soda to that, and it'll make a massive difference. So while I was doing other things, I let that rest in a bath, and as you'll see later, the results of how that went. And rather than waste the evening, I decided to have a go at starting the electronics. So in the last video, I showed you the box for the MG pickups, and in this one, we shall actually get it open. There they are. They're going to look so cool. I will keep the protective piece of plastic on them until I have installed them. But that's going to look awesome. And I decided, because of how little room there is in the existing routed out area of the back of the guitar, I decided to go for one volume, one tone. And that's only to try and avoid routing a bigger hole in the back of the guitar. But what it will do is mean that I need to fill an extra hole on the front of the body. So I may yet change my mind on that, because drilling through the front in order to create a big enough hole for the toggle switch where there used to be coil splits was not ideal. But it went in fine eventually and looks good. I then put in the master and the tone knobs. Didn't need to drill any holes for those. They were wide enough from the old knobs. And I then went about following the instructions to get them in, routing the cables through all of the old holes. But I soon came across an issue with the neck pickup. So the cable that EMG shipped isn't long enough to go through the old holes, which meant that I needed to drill a hole between the two pickup cavities to shorten the length needed for the cable, and I then needed to drill a wider hole at the bridge pickup cavity so that there was enough space for all of the cables to get through. The EMG pickup set was really simple to install. The only difficulty I had was how little space I've got at the back of that cable, and the whole thing is solderless except for the toggle switch, so it doesn't come with a toggle switch by default, and I couldn't find the EMG solderless toggle switch in stock anywhere, which did mean I had to solder the toggle switch cables over to the battery bus, which is fine. And then I hammered on the new volume and tone knobs and got the toggle switch all finished. I think they're looking really good, but I'm still, if there's not room comfortably for the battery in the back of the guitar, which will mean I need to get the router out anyway, then I will be routing a bigger hole and putting in a third knob. And I'm unsure whether I'll go 1 volume 2 tone or 2 volume 1 tone. I think 1 volume 2 tone, just because I think that's slightly more flexible. Once I'd finished with the electronics as far as I could get, I took the screws and the back plate out. As you can see, it looks a lot better than it did when it went into the bath. So props to the missus for the advice on adding bicarb. I then screwed that in and called it a day, and left the guitar as it was. Pretty happy with the progress that I'd managed to make. So after I'd fitted all of the electronics as far as I could, and one point that I didn't mention was that I was surprised, and I shouldn't have been because I should have read it properly, but the EMG solderless set does not come with humbucker rings, so I've had to order those separately, and they should arrive within the next day or two. But in speaking to the missus and doing some more research on YouTube, she suggested that I should, rather than go to a luthier, I should do some research on the nippers that I'd bought, and I found out that the problem is the cheap nippers are not flush right at the bottom, and if I bought a bigger pair, then they would be flush and they're more likely to be able to pick the frets up without causing any damage. So that's what I did, and they came, and yesterday I managed to took the solder out, and the frets just came out almost perfectly. And it was great to be able to get those frets out myself, so that I can do all of the network and the network on the fretboard still DIY as I want to with this project, which is that the whole point of this project is trying to learn how to restore a guitar start to finish 100% myself. So I got some sandpaper and some wet and dry, and what I did was I started with the coarsest sheet that I had, which was 120. I then moved to the Fender fretboard remedy, put quite a lot of it on, and slowly rubbed that in and let it settle and do its work. And the neck felt so smooth at this point in the process. I then later on in the day, after I'd finished work, got to installing the new frets. They all hammered in pretty nicely. I found that if you do one side, then the other side, then the middle, that was pretty efficient. And I haven't at this stage used any glue. So we'll see how that works over the coming days. I then used the nippers to take the majority of the edge, the bits that were hanging off the sides. And as the frets got tighter, I needed to change from going sideways to over the top. And I then took the file that I had to round off the edges and a filing block to get them tight up to the neck so that you can't feel the edge of the frets around the neck. And I then used the Dunlop fret collars and their polishing cloth to polish the metal of each neck. And that is where I've got to so far. So the things that I've got left to do are the humbucker rings, fit those to get the humbuckers in properly, put a battery in it. I've got the batteries downstairs, and I just need, and hopefully I'll do that later today to test it. I'm going to go back over the frets to make those tighter because you can still feel at this point, you can still just about feel the edge of the frets when you run your finger up and down the neck. Probably about as much as you could on a basic Squire or Epiphone starter guitar. So it's already very much usable. But I just want to get it the same as my Gibson Les Paul, where you just cannot feel them at all on the very side. And I'm sure that that's achievable. This nut that I've bought, I just need to file down slightly so that the action isn't too high. Put some strings on, put the humbuckers on, and then have the first test of whether the guitar works. I'm really happy with how the project's going and look forward to updating you all. I think there's only going to be one more video from where it is now to completion. So I look forward to sharing that and then playing the guitar and seeing how it goes. Cheers, guys.